Today, in our Tech Spotlight segment, I've invited Nick Goss, co-founder of Parallel Markets and now iCapital Senior Vice President of Alternative Solutions. Nick, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
It's great to have you here at iCapital since the acquisition of Parallel Markets, and we're very excited about the KYC and the AML capabilities that you're bringing to iCapital clients now as well. So talk about this know your customer and the anti-money laundering, pain points that you saw that you were trying to solve at Parallel Markets.
So when we originally came together to start building software in the private markets ecosystem, we were focused around this idea of how do you facilitate private market transactions more efficiently. Very quickly, as we started going to market, we were very much pulled in this KYC, know your customer, AML direction, where a lot of the firms they were speaking with had serious problems with the back and forth, the manual lift, the human effort that was involved in verifying the identity of their customers to the satisfaction or to the level that they need to meet their regulatory obligations. We decided, okay, this is an area where we can build software, we can reduce the human manual lift that is involved, we can deliver more delightful customer experiences, and then very importantly from the get-go is we wanted to provide a mechanism by which investors could have an easy button into onboarding elsewhere. Once somebody has gone through a verification on our system, what they then have the ability to do is share the information, the documentation that they provided previously with any other third party where they want to invest. This means faster time to investment for our RIA clients, for our broker-dealer clients. It means more time that they get to spend with their clients, right? Instead of focusing on the mundane onboarding processes and compliance procedures.
That obviously sounds very needed and very good, but the easy button again sounds great, but what's the kind of the practicality of it? What does technology look like? How does it come together to deliver that ease of execution?
I think table stakes in this industry, right? You have to be able to scan in a government ID. You have to be able to determine whether or not that government ID is valid. And then you have to be able to take bits of personal information about individuals and validate whether or not those bits of information, name, date of birth, address, social security number, align with like public and private data sets might say about that person. An area that we focused on that really differentiated us from everybody else in the market was around what's known as KYB, know your business, right? So the regulations around business entities are a little bit different. It's not just, hey, what is this business entity? What is their EIN? Where are they located? Okay, you actually have to go through and you have to identify, all right, who are the beneficial owners of this entity? Who are the control persons of this entity? If those beneficial owners themselves are corporates or LLCs or trusts, you then have to go another layer beyond that, right? Where we focused a lot of our technological build on was the ability to essentially dynamically and iteratively build out those beneficial ownership trees in a way that makes the compliance professionals who are working behind the scenes lives a lot easier. How do you create an easy button? How do you minimize the back and forth that's involved in what is historically been very manual processes, and how do you just make these markets overall much more efficient?
And I think you mentioned that the origin of your company was actually focused on private markets anyway, but what made this combination of Parallel Markets KYC technology with the iCapital onboarding process really attractive to you and also iCapital?
As we were navigating this ecosystem, right, we had to go through and essentially go one firm at a time and convince them, hey, the way that y'all are doing things, we can deliver massive improvements to that. Within iCapital already being situated where they have the relationships and they're building technology for funds, for RIAs, for GPs, they were running into essentially frustrations and issues around the same problems that everybody else was, right? What this is a real opportunity to lever our technology in a very meaningful way. Once an investor gets onboarded into any environment in which iCapital is operating, they then can take that identity and assert it across any other partner within the iCapital ecosystem. This means faster time to investment. This means less strain on human resources. This means more time spent interacting with your clients and talking about the things that really matter, i.e., the financial investments that make the most sense for them.
So now, Nick, that you're at iCapital, one of the things you're focused on is that integration of Parallel Markets technology with the iCapital onboarding process. So give us a feel for, what this is going to look like and what is the experience going to be for clients a little bit down the road.
In the initial instance, what this is going to look like for clients is a dramatic improvement in what a typical onboarding process looks like. So to give you a feel for this, a standard onboarding typically involves maybe a PDF document that somebody is filling out and then sort of a manual provision and a back and forth with a bunch of human beings, potentially over email, saying, oh, I need these 3 driver's licenses and this revocable trust agreement or whatever it may be, right? Instead, what the investor is going to experience is a streamlined flow where we're only requesting the information that is required required for a particular investment. They're being guided based on their responses to make sure that they're providing all of the information that is necessary to get them completely onboarded in a single go. And then the really important part is that on a go-forward basis, this person, this entity, is never going to have to provide additional information again. They're going to be able to single click and be streamlined right into whatever investing process that they're looking to get into.
Right. That is a huge advantage for sure. And Nick, my last question for you, there's a new rule, a new RIA rule, as I understand it, that sort of expands the scope of who's going to be responsible for really performing this KYC, AML due diligence. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure, absolutely. So this is FinCen promulgated a rule that is going to apply to RIAs and certain ERAs. It goes live in January 2026. I think what the important thing to recognize here is that if you're a regulator and you're trying to really clamp down on money laundering or financing the terrorism or other malfeasance, the areas that they've chosen to focus on are really the entry and the exit points to the financial ecosystem, right? What has that meant traditionally? That has meant banks and broker-dealers. What this new rule does is it essentially expands the purview of what constitutes a financial institution. This is now picking up certain RIAs, certain ERAs, and this means that their compliance function is about to have to get much more robust than it is today. By regulation, they're going to have to mimic the processes that banks and broker-dealers have been undergoing for years at this point.
Right. So certainly a very timely opportunity for us to be talking about the KYC and AML technology and the ability to scale that not just to the traditional wirehouses, but also RIA clients. So Nick, thank you so much for being here at iCapital. It's a pleasure to have you. And thanks so much for joining us to discuss this important technology today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. I'm Anastasia Amoroso, and thank you for joining us today on Beyond 6040. We'll see you next time.